Okay, I think we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of our series, The Faces of Future Ready. Here we invite and chat with disruptive thinkers, doers, and makers shaping the future of financial operations. My name is Joseph Voss, and I'm glad to be hosting today. And as you can tell by the delayed start, we are live. So if we make mistakes, there's no edits or second chances. So apologies for being late. Today, we have the pleasure of having Marc Ursick join us. Marc has carved a unique path to becoming the founder and CEO of Clearsulting. From his beginning at EY to founding a global consulting firm, Marc's journey is a masterclass in identifying opportunities and overcoming challenges. Clearsulting is at the forefront of empowering the CFO's office to be more strategic, agile, and future ready. In today's episode, we'll explore Marc's entrepreneurial path, how his teams are addressing the unmet needs of the office of the CFO, and the lessons he's learned scaling a global enterprise. Marc, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Joe. Excited to be here and excited to chat.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So let's start with your story. What inspired you to transform from a career at EY to starting Clearsulting?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's really two reasons. So when I was at EY, I had a great career, started out in audit and then transitioned into consulting. And the back end of my career, started to focus on building technology. And at the time, what I envisioned was, I thought that we could create a company that really prioritizes culture. And what I mean by that is a lot of times consultants in the market might get a bad rap, but what I wanted to create is a cultural ecosystem, and my vision was to create a company where you could bring yourself to work. You really looked forward to going to work. You looked forward to working with other great people in an ecosystem. Clients looked forward to the consultants coming around the table versus maybe just not looking forward to it. So that's the first reason. The second reason was really the market opportunity. So I started Clearsulting in 2015, and what I saw at the time was a lot of companies prioritizing automation, a lot of companies moving to the cloud, and a need for a specialist firm versus generalist. A lot of times in consulting, you're trained to know a little bit about a lot of different things, call those generalist consultants. And I saw an opportunity to create a firm full of specialists, which I was later in my career, in different areas. So for example, in my career, I was very specialized in financial close and technology that supports financial close. And I created a company at the time that prioritized and focused on building a company around other specialists. And what that does for our clients is it provides value in these niche areas that we operate in.
Interesting. No, that's a good point. I'm not sure a lot of people focus on the thought process behind doing what you did within the firm where you were versus going out on your own and creating a specialty market. Can you talk about some of the significant challenges you faced when making that move and going from where you started and as you transitioned to a more global firm?
Yeah, it's another great question. I'd bucket it into two categories, personal and professional. So what's somewhat unique around my entrepreneurial journey is concurrently I've been building a family with my wife, Michelle. So she jokes with me. I started the company in 2015. We actually got married 4 months prior to me starting the company. So she said I tricked her because she thought she was marrying a successful consultant at the time. And then I left and started this company. But then in 2016, we had our first child, my daughter, Mayla. In 2017, we had another child, my son, Brewer. A couple years later, had another daughter, Collins. And then actually we're expecting our fourth here in a couple of weeks. So my personal journey lines directly up with when I started Clearsulting. So that always presented challenges. My wife's a special education teacher, so she has a demanding job as well. But we've really done a great job in creating a good structure. And one of the reasons I want to start the company as well is to create a great working environment for parents, right, who are growing their own families. So we prioritize religiously around what we say yes and what we say no to. I want to be a very present dad in their lives. I coach all their sports. I volunteer at their schools. But at the same time, I want to be a great CEO and build a great company. So that's always a challenge from a personal perspective. Professionally, we've grown our business to over 300 team members across 4 continents now, which is hard to believe. And One of the biggest things is scaling culture. And it's not always easy, and it's something that you have to continuously prioritize year over year. It can never be an afterthought. It needs to be a number one priority, because if you build a great culture, you're going to get the best people to join the company. And if you get the best people to join the company, you're going to add a lot of value to clients, and they're going to want to work with you. So that's been a huge priority and a challenge for us. But what makes it really easy from a culture perspective is the amazing team members who have joined us. So we have a phenomenal leadership team. I'm constantly in awe of the talent that we've built here at Clearsulting. Every day something comes up that just really amazes me. I refer to it as the dream team. So like the 1992 Olympics, the first time all the NBA team members got together, they had the stars on one team. That's what we've built at Clearsulting from a consulting perspective, is all these great leaders and team members have joined us over the years. And we've been able to scale our culture very effectively across 4 continents and 300 team members.
That's interesting. So it's almost like you're building 2 families at once.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Your personal family, you've got your business family. And I wanted to take a minute, if we can, just talk a little bit about your thoughts on leadership. I noticed you have a First Friday series of blogs that you post, LinkedIn blogs. And going through some of those, I picked up some notes and wanted to get your thoughts on some concepts.
Sure.
You talk about integrity being the foundation of leadership, servant leadership, inspiring loyalty, and growth being a continuous pathway, not just a destination. Do you want to maybe expand on some of those?
Yeah, it's just something that's ingrained in our culture here at Clearsulting. We don't want to just hire leaders from the outside. We want to grow leaders. We do campus hiring all the way through very experienced hiring. And in order to scale and grow our company, we need to develop leaders. So we have a series of core values that were defined in the first couple of years of the company that we hold true to. And then we take a leadership approach of extreme ownership. It's a great book that I've read multiple times that we encourage all of our team members to read. And essentially the summary there is, you own everything in your world, right? There's no excuses. There's no blaming other people. There's no CYA. And what that does is it builds a really high performing type A culture. One thing that I'm always a firm believer in is, take a little bit less of the credit and take a little bit more of the blame. And the best leaders that I've worked with, and something that we preach here at Clearsulting, is to do that day in and day out. And if you do that, you'll grow leaders below you because they'll look up to you and the way that you operate.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I've dealt with family members in certain military situations, and the ownership of what happens under their purview is absolute, and they have to embrace it. So another one of your thoughts has to do on you talk about building a culture and building a company with like-minded individuals, and anchoring some of your decisions to your actually anchoring all of your decisions to your core values. And one comment you made that caught my eye was operating like a sailfish.
Yeah,
and I think by sailfish you mean agile, speedy, and having a competitive advantage.
Yeah, we joke about it because I used to, when we first started, it's something that was top of mind, and it still is. When you're a smaller business like we are, and you're going up against much larger, conglomerates who've been around forever, speed is a huge differentiator in the business world. And it's not just, our differentiator, really the clients that I work with. I have a chance to work with a ton of great finance leaders across our client base. The ones that operate with a sense of speed and agility get the most results out of what they do. So for us internally, we call it sailfishing. And not everything needs 10 layers of approval. Not everything needs, sign off from 7 different people or consensus. Sometimes, especially when you're trying to differentiate yourself as a firm, you have to move fast, and you have to set up the right operating model internally to make sure you can move fast and make decisions and execute on those.
Well, that's interesting. So I'm curious, and I think some of the viewers might be curious also. So you grew the firm to a sizable company. 300 folks is definitely not small. How do you empower and delegate to your teams? Because obviously you quickly got to a scale where you have to trust the folks within your purview to say, this is what we need to do, and make decisions on behalf of Clearsulting.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. You have to find the best talent in the market, which we've done a great job of. It's funny, I look back and early in the Clearsulting days, I used to go on LinkedIn and say, okay, in my dream world, I know the people in the space who are the specialists, and if they joined us, those would be great leaders because I know how great leaders, and a lot of them have joined us at this point. So the first thing is you have to trust your team from day one. I think it's impossible to scale anything, whether it's business or life or whatnot, if you don't have inherent trust in the people that you're working around the table with every day. And then you have to let go of certain things, and you have to religiously prioritize your time to focus on the things that will make the biggest impact. And you can't have your hands in all the details and the weeds of other things. And that's something that we push with our leadership team. I actually just got off a call before this that we were discussing it, and we were challenging ourselves around, hey, this is something that we should be able to delegate. And what that does is not just frees up some of your capacity, but it develops people at lower levels of the organization. So it's a win-win situation.
Interesting. It sounds like you've developed quite a capable team with people that you trust. I'm sure they trust you, and that element probably. I'd like to hear your thoughts on how that carries into your engagements, because you're dealing with either CFOs, CAOs, and their teams to rely on you to help basically make their world better.
Yeah. I think the way I go about this might be different than other people in the industry, but I think building quick trust by being honest and open. I think a lot of projects that I've seen, or maybe consulting firms, you want to show green on everything, as an example.
Right.
And that's not how we operate at Clearsulting. Our project leaders, from a client perspective, they want to know as soon as something's at risk. They want to know if there's a barrier that they can help clear from our project team's perspective. And I think you build trust by doing that and having extreme ownership. So I think open, honest, transparent are three key words that I think of in how we deal with our clients and how we work next to our clients. The other thing that we do to build trust is, I think the way I explain it is we work with our clients. We don't work at our clients. Like, we don't come in and say, we're this great consulting firm, we know everything, we've worked with all these companies, do it this way. We say, let's work together, and we're going to provide leading practices, and we're going to share our thoughts directly on what we've seen work well at other clients. But let's come to a conclusion together, and we work with our clients, and that's been a great model that has achieved a lot of success.
Interesting. So kind of delving a little more deeply into that. So could you talk a little bit how, when you go to work with a client, when you want to help transform the CFO's office, and how you help everyone see the business case for making digital transformation something they need to accomplish?
Yeah, it's a good question. So a lot of firms have this, but what we utilize, it's called the target operating model.
Okay.
And that's a fancy consulting word, which I don't love, but a good way to explain it is every finance function needs to think about their operations within the operating model. Our operating model, our version that we've created, it has 8 different components. And to explain an operating model, like just as a real life example, I'm trying to think, like you go out to eat, you go to a restaurant, and a restaurant has an operating model. You have a front office, you have, the back of the house, you have the chefs, and all these different areas for you to have a good experience. They need to work in harmony. So you make a reservation, your table's ready when you get there, you're greeted at the front counter, then you get a great meal, and maybe the manager comes and checks on you, your bill's accurate. If one of those components is off in that ecosystem, it's probably a bad experience because it throws off something else, right? If your table's not ready, you can't get a great meal. If your meal's not great, it doesn't matter how they greeted you at the front desk. I think the way finance leaders should look at this, and this is what we bring to the table with our operating model, is understanding every component of the operating model and how they feed off of each other and how one component impacts the other component. So I won't go through all 8, but just a couple examples. Like, data and technology is a key component of a finance operating model. talent activation, how you're utilizing your people and how you're thinking about talent is another key area. Your process workflows. What process improvements do you need to think through? Other examples are governance, risk, and controls. If you're changing technology or changing a process, you can't keep your old controls and your old governance processes. So those are the components that we think through, in a great way for CFOs and finance leaders to identify where they might have gaps, is to think through holistically in the operating model. Where I've seen companies get into trouble is, they might implement tech or they might just do a policy change, but they're not working holistically and thinking through how these things impact each other. I was actually on a call yesterday with a very large client, key executive there. This is a Fortune 10 company, and we do a monthly catch up. And he was mentioning that 2 years ago, they did a benchmarking assessment and they were bottom quartile, meaning, not best in class, a lot of improvements. 2 years later, we've been working with them for a couple of years now, on a lot of different areas, specifically around the close. And they benchmarked again a couple of weeks back. And now they're leading quartile, but not just leading quartile, they're best in class in leading quartile. And then you ask the question, well, why was this company able to do this? It's a massive, complex company, whereas a lot of other companies' transformation journeys fail. And what I would point to is they did a fantastic job with two things. The first thing is considering holistic operating model. They didn't throw in tech. That was a big piece of it. Technology was a huge piece of the project, but they didn't just throw it in. They thought about how they're going to adjust their talent profile. They thought about how are they going to improve their policy? How are they going to adjust their process with this technology? And they did all that in harmony. And in 2 years, they were able to go from bottom quartile to best in class. And that's the reason why. And if you combine that with really great tone at the top, you're able to achieve a lot of great things. So I'd say the operating model is the number one way that we help companies identify where there might be improvement areas.
So when you say operating model, I'm not sure if enough finance folks think about it this way, but a finance function is an operation no different than, some service function or an operating aspect of the company, or any other example you want to use. Do you find that's a challenge in transformation? Is people thinking of it that way?
Yeah, for sure. Because I think the natural inclination is thinking one component might be a silver bullet. Hey, if we make this process change, it's going to fix everything down the road. But I think when you take a step back, what you really need to realize is it's almost like a weighing station. If you improve this part might go down. So you need to think through the changes that you need to make to this part. So if you balance them all out from an operating model perspective, and you don't have to tackle every component of the operating model at once, but if you think about it holistically, it's a great way to drive improvements.
Right, because the finance function in effect is processing. You're not making widgets, but you're processing all the time. And I'm not sure if that's comes to the forefront of enough folks' mind to help make some changes.
Exactly. Yeah. Very fair point.
So so as you look at some of the ways you are working to help improve, how does the advancement of AI, different automation functions, and data management, how does that factor into what you're looking at, especially now as you talk about the entire operating model?
Yeah. What's interesting, and I posted this on LinkedIn a couple of weeks back before the new year, is we've seen more technological advancements, notably AI, really in the last 10 months than I'd argue in the last 10 years. So if you're a finance leader, you kind of look at that and say, we can either adopt AI, adopt new technology, make it our friend, or ignore it. And I think we're at this pivotal point in AI's trajectory and technology's trajectory where the companies who do prioritize it and are proactive about it. I know a lot of companies right now that are actually creating internal centers of excellence, or COEs, specifically around AI and technology, because they want to be ahead of the curve, because it is going to be a strategic advantage. So I'd say it needs to be a priority. And additionally, another impact that it has, going back to the operating model, is if you think about what we call talent activation. the talent profile under a CFO or a finance function has changed quite a bit. And being proactive around understanding where there may be gaps. A good example is, maybe an NFL GM or a general manager of a sports team. My Cleveland Browns are probably doing this right now as we speak. But you look at, if you didn't have, a great year, if there are improvement opportunities, how do you set your team up for success? And what skill gaps do you have? And with the advancement in technology, I'd argue more of the CFOs and finance leaders that I'm talking with in my network right now, it's one of their top priorities is to make sure they have that skill set, not just in an IT function, which is natural at a lot of organizations, but they want it under them. And the reason they want it under them is because they want that continuous improvement. They want, not to just do a project and forget about it. It's really a full-time function now, whether it's a person or a center of excellence when it comes to AI and technology.
So you mentioned technology, adoption of AI, and changing processes. How do you see that affecting the teams within the office of the CFO, and quite honestly, within your team? Because it seems like as the technology shifts, as the application and the focus shifts, it does require different needs. And you've got some teams that are set up for that, but others, I can imagine there's a challenge there.
Yeah, I can speak to both, how we're thinking through this internally at Clearsulting, and then also how we recommend or how we see our clients tackle it. I'd say the first piece of it, and this is, goes for Clearsulting or any company, I think the best team members in any ecosystem or any company are the ones that can adapt, because you have the historic knowledge, and then you can become very dangerous if you continuously adapt and reinvent yourself based on the market. Right? There's a lot of finance and accounting folks that when AI started coming out, they totally changed their skill set and what they can offer in a positive way. At Clearsulting, I just think back to, when I started the company, 2 team members, joined in the first 2 months. Monica and Paige are their names. And 9 years ago, I remember I handed a laptop to them in the parking lot and said, let's go into this client. We're going to go do this kickoff meeting. And they've probably had, 10 plus jobs in the last 9 years. And they've excelled at every single one of them because they are so adaptable. And now they're leading full functions at Clearsulting, and they're 2 of our top leaders here. But just that adaptability is so huge. And you see that at clients and internally at Clearsulting.
So do you advocate that both within your team and when you're on your engagements dealing with financial leadership at your company?
For sure. And I think it's inherent at companies, and I'll share how we deal with this at Clearsulting as well, is, there's always a group of people, whether they sit in IT or under finance, that I'd say are more technology advanced, and they're thinking about this, on a day-to-day basis. But the most powerful companies, and this is what we're driving in our culture at Clearsulting as well, it happens throughout the organization. It might not be we have a couple different functions. So we have a team at Clearsulting that is specifically dedicated to AI, for example, specifically dedicated to digital assets, specifically dedicated to what we call new ventures. So we're always thinking ahead on the horizon, what's coming next and what should we be investing in. And those are small, centers of excellence or hit teams, whatever you want to call them. But what we preach is everybody, regardless of where you sit in the organization, should be thinking about this. And everybody, regardless of where you sit in the organization, should be prioritizing upskilling in these areas and bringing ideas to the table. I had a senior analyst in our intercompany practice call me, I think a couple weeks before break. And there was a client who, this person saw a need or a gap in, what this client was looking for, and he thought he could build a solution in AI. And that's really I'll give you this difference. 10 years ago, that would have been a 6-month project, and you got to do all this analysis and whatnot. He built a prototype in a day.
Wow.
That shows you the difference in worlds that we're living in versus maybe a decade ago. And we were able to demo it to the client executive the following week. They loved it. It's driving a ton of automation at that client, and we're able to introduce it to other clients at this point now. And that was just because we've built a culture where a senior analyst can come to the CEO and share some cool innovations that they're doing. And now it's made a huge impact on our business.
That's amazing. Having that agility and employees who can take that initiative must be very empowering.
For sure. For sure.
So as you look forward over the next few years, what do you see as some of the bigger opportunities for CFOs and their offices and their operations as you look to carry forward?
Yeah, I think a couple of themes that I'm hearing from my CFO network and finance leader network is really a lot of projects that are launching. They actually want to self-fund them. So I'll give you an example. We were on a call with a company that is just launching, very large company, a finance transformation effort. And their goal is to prioritize quick wins early on. So they're not, asking the board or whatnot for millions and millions of dollars. Rather, they're tackling small areas where they know have high ROI. They're getting those savings. They're using those savings to fund the next phase of the project. Then they're using those savings to fund the next phase of the project. So I think what we're seeing is a lot more agile methodology when it comes to projects. And then, some of the best areas that I'm seeing success in finance transformation across our client base is leaders who are bold. We live and operate in a fairly conservative function. Finance is not necessarily the first function in business to innovate or, maybe to adopt AI. But the best companies that I'm seeing who are getting very strong ROI and results on their projects, they're being bold with this. And they're saying we have to maybe not look at how we've done things in the past, but given the change in technology, we need to almost start from scratch with a blank sheet of paper and look at our operating model and look at our technology and look at our systems and look at our processes and really reinvent them, for lack of a better term, versus, tweaking certain areas based on how we've done things in the past.
Interesting. So transformation literally should be transformation, not evolution. Should be revolutionary.
And I think the opportunity with AI now and with technology is there to do things cheaper, is there to do things more efficient, is there to do things at a higher quality. But I think leaders have to be bold in stating that this is the direction that we're going on. We're going to use technology. We're going to use AI. We're going to adopt this stuff proactively. And I think the leaders who do that will be ahead of the curve in the future.
It's interesting, Marc, the concept of accelerating the pathway of getting to the results versus taking the time to analyze and understand what they mean. That concept has been around for decades. But I'm guessing that there are certain CFOs that are more embracing of that concept when it comes to newer technology today than others. Any thoughts on that and how you've been able to help get change pushed through several companies?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll answer with an example that is a real life example. We work closely with a company, and I'm pretty close with the client leader there. And speaking of being bold, when we sat down and walked through, all right, here's what we're thinking from a transformation perspective. They shared their goals, and we started mapping out, a plan of attack to tackle some of these areas. His perspective was accelerate, speed. And naturally I was, like, okay, we want to move fast, Sailfish. We want to Sailfish. Like it's our mindset, our methodology, but this is even, aggressive for my liking here. And he continued to push and we got it done. And it was an approach that as a consultant, made me a little nervous, but we had a great partnership where the client's train of thought was, hey, let's move fast. Let's accelerate. Let's get ROI. We understand not everything is going to be perfect, and that's okay.
Right.
And we're planning a phase after this phase where we can optimize those things if necessary. But it was an amazing push. And I think a lot of other leaders can learn from that leader that I'm referencing in terms of, you don't always have to take a conservative approach. You can move fast. You might miss things along the way, but speed is a huge differentiator. And I think with these transformation programs, the days of consultants showing up and, showing 3 to 6 year roadmaps and whatnot are gone.
Yeah.
And with technology, it's very realistic to achieve a lot of things in a short amount of time.
So getting something done today that provides some incremental value is better than a multi-year thought out plan that might take too long to get it implemented.
Yeah. And think about it like this. Companies who were doing finance transformation roadmaps 3 years ago, the landscape has completely changed. If you put a 5-year roadmap together 3 years ago, pre-AI,
Right.
a lot of technology that's developed now, what is that worth? Because that has totally changed, and I would argue it's the wrong roadmap. So being
Right.
agile with finance leaders when you're mapping this out is critically important.
Interesting. So take just a minute if you can and share with us a little bit about your vision for Clearsulting and how you view your role in shaping some of the future in terms of transformation and changes.
Yeah, our goals are very, very direct, and we share this across not only our leadership meetings, but across our entire firm. It's very well known. First and foremost, we want to create the best possible, we call it cultural ecosystem in the market. That is our number one priority as a firm. That is why we exist. That is what we fight for every day. We want to be the best culture in the market by far. Secondarily, or what that leads to, is we want to be the leader in the finance transformation space. We founded the firm in this space. We've done hundreds of projects in this space. We focus in this space. It's really all we do. So we feel like we're on a really good path we want to be the most innovative, the highest quality player in the space. We're just getting started. I always say to our team, we're 1% of where we want to be. We got a long, fun journey ahead of us. One executive that we just started working with in Q3 of last year called me in Q4 and said, you guys are the best kept secret in finance transformation. And I think when I think about our future goal, like we've never historically spent a ton of money on sales or marketing or any of these functions. We let the quality of our jobs do the talking for us. I think we want to do everything that we've done over the last 9 years, but ideally, we're not a secret anymore in the future. We want to be out in the market. We want to be leaders in the finance transformation space.
Interesting. Well, Marc, we certainly appreciate you taking the time to share with us. We do have a few questions from folks if we take a few more minutes, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
One of the questions is, if you could name one, what's been the biggest learning curve in terms of scaling your company globally?
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's and you go through growth, as you lead an organization and talking about reinventing yourself. I've reinvented myself every year. I was 9 years ago, we were 3-person firm where I was a manager on projects. Now we're 300 people scaling globally. And I think just the highs are high, the lows are low when it comes to entrepreneurship and starting a company. And one thing, I've learned is just to stay even keeled throughout, like things that I would lose sleep over or be up all night about 7-8 years ago, are just normal business now. And that's been something that has helped me as a CEO, but also, as a dad to my kids, is you have to be even keeled, take the punches, enjoy the highs, understand the lows are growing experiences, and you really just enjoy the journey throughout.
Interesting. So I've heard other entrepreneurs and business founders say the toughest thing was handing someone the key, either literally to the door of the building or figuratively to other folks. Did you find that making some of those first steps into relying on your team was difficult, or were there challenges with that? How did you grow from that? Because obviously now, like we spoke about earlier, you've got a great team that on which your business is built now.
Yeah, I think where I'm lucky, to be honest, Joe, is a lot of the early team members I already had trust in. So these weren't people off the street necessarily that I hired in. So there was some inherent trust there. I had either worked with them in the past, or our first hire, Monica, she's actually my younger sister. She worked at PwC. Paige is a family friend. So think the first, call it 3 to 6 hires, I had a strong relationship with prior to Clearsulting, and they were crazy enough to join me because probably they knew me from the past. So it was very hard to get people to join early on. But I think if you hire great people, like CEOs that I talk to, they always say like it's lonely at the top and this kind of stuff. I've never felt that, just being completely honest, because of the team around me and team members we've been able to bring on and all the great leaders. I learned from them. In my role, I'm very appreciative, and I never take for granted day in and day out the great people that I get to work with at Clearsulting. And I never want to take that for granted, because I'm lucky that they joined the company and had trust in me. And I'm lucky that I get to work with them on a daily basis and see what amazing things they do internally and for our clients.
That's interesting. So, it speaks highly of both your leadership and the folks that you chose to join you, both from the beginning and now. So I think that hopefully will be something of interest to the folks who are watching. So before we wrap up, is there anything more you'd like to share? Any other questions or comments that you think will be helpful to the folks for this episode?
No, I just want to say thank you to you, Joe, and Blackline for hosting this. This is a really good opportunity, and hopefully the viewers, learned a lot and enjoyed the conversation. And if there's any questions or any follow-ups, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn or check out our website, and we'd be happy to get back together.
Well, that's great. So we do appreciate you joining us, Marc, and walking through your journey and sharing your insights. That's been very helpful to us. I think the folks who are watching will very much appreciate that. For folks who are listening, if you want to follow up, please check out clearsulting.com. Check out Marc on LinkedIn. Like he said, he publishes great information that is not necessarily focused on transformation, but it's just about leadership and other topics I think everyone would enjoy. And I think that would be helpful. So Marc, thanks a lot. I think that'll do it for this episode. Thank you everyone for joining, and hope you have a good rest of the afternoon.
Great. Thanks, Joe. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.